Welcome to Season 3 of Adventures in Compliance. In this season, we are reviewing all of the Sherlock Holmes stories which are collected in the work The Return of Sherlock Holmes. It is a collection of 13 detective stories written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, marking the reappearance of the brilliant detective Sherlock Holmes after his apparent death in The Final Problem, which ended Season 2 and was the last story in the memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. The collection spans various intriguing cases and mysteries that Holmes and his loyal friend Dr. Watson tackle. First, a word from this month's sponsor of the Compliance Podcast Network, Ethico.
In the intricate world of ethics and compliance, each second is precious, and slow case closures are more than just delays, they're missed opportunities. Enter Ethico. Our solution revolutionizes case management, cutting case closure times in half and turning every challenge into a chance for improvement. Imagine a workspace where efficiency and compliance coexist harmoniously. Don't just dream of faster resolutions, make it your reality. Visit ethico.com/CPN today to book a demo and dive into our exclusive white paper by Tom Fox, 2023, The Year in Compliance. Empower your team with the tools they deserve.
To conclude this season of The Return of Sherlock Holmes on Adventures in Compliance, we're going to have a two-part episode on the adventure of the second stain. After a hiatus in October and November of 1904, Conan Doyle returned to the magazine in December with a tale that readers quickly recognized as a blast from the past, which was alluded to in The Adventure of the Naval Treaty. Today, we conclude this season of Adventures in Compliance with part 2 of The Second Stain. In this story, Holmes is tasked with finding a document from the government that, if it falls into the wrong hands, might well explode into war. Of course, the authorities don't want Holmes to know what the document is, and it's only when he points out that it will be very difficult for him to find a document if he doesn't know what it is, that they tell him it was a letter from a foreign ruler. Now, Inspector Lestrade comes back into the story, returning from a void of recent Sherlock Holmes adventures to take an active role in this case, however, to allow Holmes to outmaneuver his best suspicions once again. Holmes has two initial lines of inquiry. First, he knew that Hope had the letter in his possession, and nobody, not his wife, not his servants, knew about this. And second, what Holmes' contacts within the espionage world can tell him, especially after Holmes learns that one of the most reliable of them, a gentleman named Eduardo Lucas, has been found murdered. It's not a coincidence, and it's time for the mystery of Lucas's death as well. Lucas's valet was the initial suspect, but he was able to provide an alibi, and Lucas's wife is linked to the crime. But she is insane and cannot be relied upon for any statements whatsoever. But it is apparent that the killer had enough time in the room where Lucas died to both move furniture and carpet around, hence the second stain from the title, while Lucas was bleeding out. Sadly, the secret hiding place that Holmes finds is empty, having been recently used. The constable stationed outside the murder scene acknowledges that he had allowed someone into the room, a woman who he had intended to accompany throughout the visit, but who had fainted at the sight of so much blood. The constable went to get her some brandy, and in return, she had recovered and gone. Holmes produces a photograph of Hope's wife, and it was she. The story flows out from there, as Lucas had been blackmailing Mrs. Trelawney Hope, demanding the contents from her husband's dispatch box to maintain his silence. A spy in the politician's own office had informed Lucas of what was there. She delivered the papers before she could leave again. Lucas's insane wife appeared and accused the pair of being lovers. Hilda had returned, and Lucas had been murdered. She retrieved the papers while the constable was fetching her some brandy, and now returned them to the dispatch box, which was where, Holmes told the Prime Minister and Secretary, they'd been all along. The Secretary had made the entire mess and fess for naught. Today, I wanted to begin the story's analysis by looking at some of the investigative lessons from the story of the second stain. Number one, thoroughness. Holmes emphasized the importance of a thorough investigation, leaving no stone unturned. He meticulously examined every detail and considered the various possibilities. For the compliance professional, this obviously underscores the importance of thoroughness in investigative work, ensuring that all avenues are fully explored. 2. Critical thinking. Holmes demonstrates exceptional critical thinking skills throughout this story, carefully analyzing evidence and questioning assumptions. He encourages examining evidence from multiple perspectives and then considering alternative explanations. For the compliance professional, critical thinking is essential in investigative work to avoid biases and uncover the truth. Jonathan Marks might call this professional skepticism. Number 3, attention to detail. Attention to detail is a hallmark of Holmes' investigative method. He notices even the smallest details that others overlook and recognizes their significance. This lesson underscores the importance of paying close attention to details during an investigation, as they can provide crucial clues. Number 4, persistence. Holmes exhibits persistence in pursuing the truth even when faced with challenges and setbacks. He remains dedicated to solving the case, following leads relentlessly until he uncovers the truth. This persistence is something that every compliance professional should take to heart, as it highlights the importance of this in overcoming obstacles and achieving success. Number 5, information gathering. Holmes emphasizes the importance of gathering information from various sources to build a comprehensive understanding of this matter. He leverages his network of contacts and diverse sources of information to piece this puzzle together. For the compliance professional, information gathering underscores the value of thorough information gathering in investigations, even in triage, using a combination to gather information: human, signet, and of course, data analytics. And last, analytical skills. Holmes' analytical prowess is central to his investigative success. He employs deductive reasoning and logical analysis to interpret evidence and draw conclusions. For the compliance professional, this highlights the importance of honing analytical skills in investigative work and enabling investigators to make sense of complex patterns and identify information which might not otherwise be noticed by a non-compliance professional. Next, I want to look at data analytics in the context of the second stain and what they might mean for the compliance professional, as by drawing parallels between Holmes' investigative methods and modern data analytics principles, we can gain insight into how data analytics can be applied to solve compliance issues. Number 1, data triangulation. Here, Holmes gathers data from multiple sources, including witnesses, physical evidence, and his own observations. This method of data triangulation helps him corroborate information and build a more accurate picture of the case. In data analytics, triangulating data from various sources can enhance the reliability and validity of insight. 2, pattern recognition. Holmes is adept at recognizing patterns in data, whether it's the behavior of individuals or the significance of particular pieces of evidence. In data analytics, pattern recognition is essential for identifying trends, anomalies, or correlations within data. Number 3, hypothesis testing. Holmes formulates hypotheses based on available evidence and then tests them against new information as it arises. This iterative process of hypothesis testing allows Holmes to refine his understanding of the case and ultimately solve it. Similarly, in data analytics, hypothesis testing involves formulating and testing hypotheses to validate or refute assumptions about the data. Number 4, visualization technique. While Conan Doyle doesn't explicitly describe Holmes using visualization technique, Holmes often visualizes data in his mind's eye to draw conclusions. Data visualization techniques such as charts, graphs, and diagrams can help analysts interpret complex data assets and data sets more effectively and communicate insights more clearly. Number 5, data interpretation. Here, Holmes demonstrates strong skills in interpreting data and drawing logical conclusions from that data. He carefully analyzes the evidence, considers various possibilities, and applies deductive reasoning to arrive at a solution. In data analytics, the ability to interpret data accurately is essential for deriving meaningful insights, and making informed decisions. And number 6, data management. Once again, although not explicitly mentioned in the stories, Holmes employs some form of data management to organize and catalog the information he gathers in his investigation. Effective data management practices, such as data organization, storage, and retrieval, are crucial for ensuring that data is accessible and usable for analysis going forward. I'd like to conclude with a little bit deeper dive into pattern recognition and how the compliance professional can use data to do. What about behavior patterns? Holmes pays close attention to the behavior of individuals involved in the case. He observes their actions, mannerisms, and speech patterns to discern their motivations and intentions. By recognizing patterns in behavior, Holmes is able to uncover hidden motives and identify potential suspects. This is certainly something consistent with an investigation by a compliance function. Number 2, evidence analysis. Holmes meticulously analyzes the evidence collected from the crime scene, looking for patterns and inconsistencies that could provide clues about the culprit. For example, he examines the nature of the stains on the letter and the significance of the missing document. By recognizing patterns in evidence, Holmes is able to piece together the puzzle and narrow down the list of suspects. This is certainly something that every compliance professional should utilize as well. What about historical patterns? Number 3, here Holmes draws upon his extensive knowledge of past cases and criminal history to identify patterns and similarities that may help solve the current mystery. He references the previous incidents and criminal profiles to gain insights into the modus operandi of the perpetrator. By recognizing patterns in historical data, Holmes is able to make an informed deduction and predictions on the case. As a compliance professional, you need to be aware of not only the historical patterns of your company, but also that within your industry. And finally, social patterns. Holmes recognizes patterns in social dynamics and relationships between the characters involved in the case. He considers their personal backgrounds, social connections, and motivations to understand their role. By understanding patterns in social interactions, Holmes is able to uncover hidden alliances, betrayals, and conspiracies. By using these strategies and others in pattern recognition, a compliance officer and an investigator can see beyond the surface and uncover hidden truths that elude others. Keen observation skills and deductive reasoning enable Holmes to identify meaningful patterns in a sea of data. Fortunately, today, we have data analytics and several companies who can look at patterns of data and find essentially patterns in raked leaves. So I hope you will consider utilizing one of these companies and helping you in your investigations, as well as on a proactive basis to determine if anything is askance or needs to be taken into a deep dive for further investigation. Compliance Podcast Network is sponsored this month by Ethico. Ethico is a leader for compliance champions like yourself with its ethics and compliance optimization system built to turn goals and guidelines into real ROI for your program. For more information and a special white paper, go to ethico.com/CPN. I hope you've enjoyed this season 3 of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, where we looked at stories from the Return of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes was recently honored by the Communicator Awards for top podcast in business consulting. So this was a great award and honor for Adventures in Compliance, and really shows how you can use storytelling in a wide variety of ways to get your message across. I hope you will join me in our next series on Sherlock Holmes. But before we get there, we're going to take a small or short detour into the Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce movies as we look at some of the movies or the oeuvre of movies that they put out in the stories of Sherlock Holmes, how some of the stories were changed to bring them up to modern day. But it's still a lot of fun. And I hope you will not only read the Conan Doyle stories and books, but also enjoy some of the movies of Sherlock Holmes.